a question that we get asked a lot is, do you have a expectation of privacy in your cell phone? And the answer is absolutely you do. If you're under investigation, a few tips I'm going to give you is take off the biometric data on your cell phone. That is the Face ID. If you walk into NCIS or CID, they're going to grab your phone and make you look at it, and you're going to unlock your phone without you even realizing you're going to unlock your phone, and then it's going to be up to a defense attorney a year later to try to suppress that. So take the biometric identification off, the Face ID. I know it's a pain in the butt, but take it off. The second issue is make sure your phone is updated to the most recent software that's available, because NCIS, CID, DCFL, the Defense Computer Forensics Laboratories, has fairly sophisticated software, including something called Gray Key, where they can attempt to hack your phone or break into your phone and get through the passcode by using essentially raw force. And by that, it just runs an algorithm of every single password possible. And they may hook your phone up to a machine. It may run for 6 months, or I've seen even a year, and they're able to get into the phone. So the more recent, if you have a more recent phone with the most recent software updates, it's more difficult to do. Also, get rid of your old password. This is just basic OPSEC. If you had a password that you've used forever, get rid of it and start a new 6-digit password, or the strongest password you can. Don't share it with anyone and make it unique to the phone to make it harder to get into the phone. And I'm not saying that to try to have someone obstruct justice, but you have a right to privacy within your phone. And I firmly believe that unless the government has a legitimate search authorization, they should not be doing a general rummaging through your personal effects. I believe in a small government. I believe that the government should not have the power to go rummaging through your phone and to find everything that's ever on your phone. Your phone is essentially your entire life is on your phone. And if they're going to take your phone and seize your phone, they need to do it right and have a proper search authorization for that. So let's talk about a search authorization of a phone. That has to be limited in scope. And so if they are searching for something in particular, let's say that there's a sexual assault investigation between an accused and an alleged victim, and the government wants specific text messages between the two of you that night, or the string of text messages from the night before the incident, and those are potentially available on your phone, they will have to get a specific search authorization and have to narrowly tailor that authorization just for what they have probable cause for. And so what you'll generally see is NCIS, CID, OSI, they will get a search authorization which is narrowly tailored for that, for maybe the message between you and the alleged victim. Then they go to your phone and they just blow through the search authorization like it didn't exist and look at everything on your phone. And then they find maybe there's a photograph of you from 4 years ago smoking weed, and now they want to use that against you. Or what they'll do is they'll go through your contacts and find every girl you've ever dated or every guy you've ever dated for the last 3 or 4 years, and then go out and reach out and contact them and try to turn them into victims. They may do general searches on your internet history to see if you're looking for potential CSAM or child sexual abuse material. There's all sorts of things that the government often does with a phone that's well outside the scope of a warrant. And what the government's going to say is this is all, quote, in plain view. And this is where the case law gets very interesting. And what's plain view on a cell phone? Because when a lot of these cases were initially decided, their cell phones didn't even exist. Digital media didn't exist. So you have the old cases of an law enforcement agent comes into your home and maybe they see cocaine or they see illicit drugs or a weapon that's in plain view. Maybe it's on the kitchen table, and when they walk into the house, that's in plain view, and they can use that and seize that. But on a cell phone, what is in plain view? And so oftentimes that becomes a very difficult question to answer. And oftentimes this comes down to digital forensic examiners and digital forensic evidence. And so if the government exceeded the scope of a warrant, let me tell you, they do this all the time. In almost every single case where there's a cell phone, the government looks at these warrants and as if they don't give a crap about them, and they're, don't care about the Constitution. And as long as they get your phone, many of these agents, and maybe most of these agents, believe they can do whatever the hell they want with it, because I think their belief is we'll get any evidence we can of a crime and let a defense attorney a year later on down the road try to suppress it. If we're suppressing evidence on a digital search, it becomes a very technical issue where your attorney needs to absolutely understand digital forensics and have a digital forensic examiner, or what's called a DFE, who's going to be able to go piece by piece and understand the exact steps the government took when they were searching for your phone. All of this has to be documented, and they're going to have to explain what steps they took and why they potentially exceeded the scope of the warrant. And so this is a case where maybe you gave them consent to search your cell phone, or maybe they had a search authorization, but if they exceeded the scope of your consent or exceeded the scope of the warrant, we're going to file a motion and litigate this. And oftentimes, what depends on what happens with the judge, but if a judge grants that, then the evidence will be suppressed and the government can't use it. Now, there's one more piece of this where the government gets really a free bite at the apple, because not only do we need to show that in the case of this, the government exceeded the scope of the warrant, there's something called inevitable discovery, which is tough from a defense counsel point of view. We have to show that this information would not have been what's called inevitably discovered, which is essentially that they would have discovered it anyways. And so there would have been other ways that the government could have discovered this evidence. So even if they violated the search authorization or the scope of the search authorization, if the government can show something called inevitable discovery that they would have discovered it through other means, we're going to lose our motion. And then finally, we need to show bad faith on the part of the government. Because what the government oftentimes does is they'll say, yep, we exceeded the scope of the warrant, but the government wasn't acting in bad faith. And we need to be able to show bad faith on the part of the cops or on the detectives, which is often difficult to do. So the government knows this. These seasoned agents know that, and that they run right over the Constitution, figuring this is probably not going to get suppressed anyways, and better to ask for forgiveness than permission in advance and just kind of screw the Constitution. That's the way they look at it. And so you need an attorney who really understands how suppression works and how to file these motions, how to litigate these motions. Because if you don't, you're going to get run over. And even if your statements or evidence was taken off a digital media device that was in violation of a search authorization, it's going to be used against you. Constitution be damned unless you can actually hit all of the wickets to get that suppressed. And even when it does get suppressed, there's ways to open the door so it comes back into evidence. The government knows this. Law enforcement agents know this. They look at the Constitution and probably laugh and just blow right through it. And I think that's a real problem. If you're a military service member and you've already made a statement or you've given an admission or a confession that isn't true, or you've had a cell phone seized, or there's evidence that looks damning on its face that you think is going to be used against you at trial, let me tell you what, all hope is not lost. You still can fight this. You can still take this case to trial, and it can still be won. Give me a call at 813-669-3500 or do additional research at my website, BileckiLawGroup.com, and get us into the fight.